Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Back to the Basics devotion and Bible study tonight on Luther's Small Catechism. I showed these to you last week, the Sola version, which all of our confirmation students receive, and then also our Augsburg Fortress copy, which I used both in seminary and in confirmation to memorize and learn the catechism. Tonight, I want to go back and just kind of give a brief review of the commandments and Luther's use of the commandments in the Catechism, and then begin with a reflection on the first commandment. As you might remember from last week, we have to go back and get caught up. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Think back to the book of Exodus. It's the second book in the Bible. Abraham's descendants have wandered off into northern Egypt with the land of Goshen, where they have been spared from a terrible worldwide famine. Now there arose a king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. That's how the story kind of gets rolling in the book of Exodus. The existence of God's chosen people was characterized by forced slavery, infanticide, and oppression on every side. Thankfully, however, they had Adonai, the God who sees, hears, who knows, and who comes down in order to bring up. When Moses finally convinces them to follow the Lord, they see God's sweeping plagues, the amazing acts of deliverance, and they begin their journey toward home. As the Israelites emerge from Egypt, and from their slavery, God seeks to preserve them safe and secure into God's preferred future. And so what ends up happening then is that, as my friend Kenny says, the commandments undergirded the relationship between the Creator as well as the fellow creatures who were part of that community, providing both boundaries and blessings. Boundaries and blessings are important when dealing with human beings. These two words, similar to our Lutheran lingo of law and gospel, or as Luther puts it in the explanations, fear and love, address the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that are in each one of us. Yes, there are two of you, believe it or not. Most often we think of individuals as something that's really pretty good that just happens to slip up every once in a while making a bad choice. Or we assume that with a little bit of work, we can improve our situation. But our individuality is not on some equilibrium whereby we can slide back and forth between one polarity or another. Rather, in each of us, the battleground of two mutually exclusive totalities. The Christian is not half free and half bound, but is slave and free at once. Not half saint, but sinner and saint at the same time. Not half alive, but actually dead and alive at the same time. Not a mixture, but actually gaping opposition of the antitheses of each other. As I tell our confirmation students, you are 100% sinner and 100% saint 100% of the time. So what is the point of giving us commandments then? While the commandments do tell us what to do and what not to do, they don't actually have the power to change hearts. Luther said when the commandments do their work on us, they reveal individuals to themselves. Through the commands, we know our inability to do good. The commandments are not given to us as a roadmap toward perfection, nor are they used like a cattle prod, which can zing us out of the pen of sin and into the alleyway toward moralism or faithfulness. Instead, the commandments hold up a mirror to us and show us exactly who we are. The commandments invoke a holy fear in the sinner who is not able or willing to stand before God without first trying to climb into God's seat. So as Ferdy and Nestigan put it in this handy little book, Free to Be, they say the commandments are given to keep the sinner in us under control. God uses the commandments to teach the old sinner in us what our limits are. Likewise, the commandments, which put boundaries on us, will then become blessings to us as God uses them against our neighbors in order to protect us and our stuff, everything that belongs to us. At the same time, God presents these commands as a description of God's will in our lives. Even though the old sinner in us is not capable of doing them on our own, God's Spirit bestows the new you, creating a person of faith who loves and trusts God above all things. In between this fear and love that we're going to hear over and over in Luther's explanation of the commandments, in between this fear and love lies the life-changing and the life-giving space where the Holy Spirit creates and sustains our faith in God. So to deal with the two of you, God gives boundary and blessing. He commands and promises 100% of the time so that he can invoke fear and create love from the sinner and the saint who you are. With all that being said, last week we began with that silly 8th commandment, right? And if social media isn't to blame for the reason that we share our opinion as the gospel truth, we might also examine the first commandment. The first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. Luther defined God, a lowercase g, in this way. A God is that from which we are to expect all good and in which we are to take refuge in all distress. To have a God is nothing other than trusting and believing in him with all our heart. Whatever you set your heart on and put your trust in is truly your God. As Luther went on to explain in this commandment with a series of counter examples, unveiling a series of idols that we worship every day in our society. The list is not really all that surprising, and it hasn't changed much over 500 years since Luther wrote this. Here's what he said. We have the idols of money and possessions, skills and services, prudence and power, favor and friendship, love and loyalty. And in true Luther style, he sort of ramps up the law or slams down the gavel for us. He says, everyone has set up his own special God, whatever he looks to for blessing, help, and comfort. Think about your experience over the course of your isolation during the pandemic shutdown, shall we? This might get a little scary, maybe a little bit too honest, but let's give it a go anyway. Do you feel like you totally lost your identity when you couldn't get in the car and go to your job? Is it possible that during the separation you discovered that you've made an idol of your grandkids and their activities? If you were anything like me, you expected the refrigerator to benevolently provide you with every meal, with every snack, and with every boredom buster. The quarantine 19, right? Can I get an amen? It's also possible that anyone driving by our basement windows on any given evening after, say, 7:30 p.m. would likely accuse Meg and me of being worshipers of Netflix and Hulu. Think about just how frantic you get when you've lost your keys or you can't find your cell phone or the TV remote. These are our idols, dear friends. What are you most afraid to forfeit when you shuffle off this mortal coil, as Hamlet said? The wisdom of AA strikes again. A fearless and searching moral inventory will no doubt reveal the God to which we cling, exposing our polytheism when we were actually to fear, love, and trust God above anything else. Well, we can be thankful that God has not abandoned us to our lucky stars. Take a listen to what Gerhard Forde and Jim Nestigan had to say about the first commandment. I had to read this book in my seminary confessions class, and the opening words of this book may be the most beautiful sermon of the last century and had me absolutely captivated. It's what made me and confirmed me as a Lutheran as I went to seminary. Hear these words. God has made a decision about you. God hasn't waited to find out how sincere you are, how devout or religious you might be, or how well you understand the Bible or the Catechism. God hasn't even waited to find out if you are interested or willing to take his decision seriously. God has simply decided. God made this decision knowing full well the kind of person that you are. God knows you better than anyone else could, inside out, upside down, and backwards. God knows where you are strong and where you are weak, what you are most proud of and what you would most like to hide. Be that as it may, God's decision is made. God comes right out with it. I am the Lord your God. This is God's decision. God has decided to be your God. For God wants to be as close to you as your next breath, to be the one who gives you confidence and value, to open a future to you in the freedom of God's word. God wants to be the one to whom you turn for whatever you need. God has said this before many times in your life. God first announced this decision about you when you were baptized. You, God said, as the pastor spoke your name, are baptized in my name. I am your God, and I will never let you go. God has said it since your baptism too, speaking on the lips of those who have loved you, whether they were a part of your family, maybe a teacher or one of your pastors. In fact, God is saying it again in these very words. You, the one who is reading this or hearing this, I am your God. How do you like that? Maybe you would like to ask a different question. Who is this God anyway? It is the God who made you and everything that is. The God who raised Jesus of Nazareth from the dead after he had been put to death on the cross. The one whose spirit came like a mighty rushing wind to drive home a word that gives forgiveness and hope. It is the God who sent and called Abraham and Sarah out of the desert, the God who sent word to Mary that she would be having a baby, the God who covered the Apostle Paul's eyes with scales and then opened his very mouth to deliver freedom. So maybe now you've got another question. What's in it for me? If God has made a decision for me, what do I get out of it? To start with, you get life itself. God's decision is the life of you. For God is the one who has given you your mind, body, and all your powers, who has looked after you by night and cared for you by day, giving you all that you need. The God who creates is the God of life. When God says, I am your God, you can expect this God to give you everything that you need to live. Second, there's more. With God's decision, you receive the freedom of forgiveness. The God who is decided for you is the God who in Christ refuses to hold your past against you, no matter what shape it had. The God we know in Jesus is the one who takes you as you are, with your strengths, gifts, talents, and abilities, but also with your bad habits, selfishness, pride, and whatever else you might want to conceal. There are no strings on God's decision, and so there's no strings on you either. You're free. And still there's more. 3 things. The God who is decided for you is the one who opened the grave that first Easter morning, the God who raises the dead. So when this God says, I am your God, the am stands forever. God is, God was, and God always will be your God. So no grave will ever be able to hold you. In the silence of death, you will hear Jesus' voice saying, rise and shine. I am your God. God's decision then opens your future. Does it sound pretty good? God has decided to be your God. The one who has made this decision is the one who has created you, who has freed you, and who has assured you of your future. God's decision grants life, forgiveness, and resurrection. You are free. What beautiful promises to behold this night as we go about our daily life and live under that first commandment, that God is our God, that we need nothing other than him. And so we are free to fear and love and to trust God above anything else. Thanks be to God. Amen.